Alright, so in this video I'm going to take a look at the DEA's FAQs. So they have several FAQs. There's just lists and lists of different ones. I'll try to tell you where I got this question from every time, but let's just jump into it, really. I think a lot of this is repeated, stuff you hear all the time, but it almost confirms that you're going to get this on the test, because they get questions about it so many times, they're going to write questions about it. So for miscellaneous questions, there is the long-term care facility questions. So question is, can controlled substance prescriptions for a resident of a long-term care facility be faxed to a pharmacy? And the answer is yes. Schedules 2 through 5 controlled substance prescriptions may be transmitted by the practitioner or the practitioner's agent to the dispensing pharmacy by fax or facsimile. So another question, they have the statement of one of their policies. So I'm not going to do every question, but only the things that seem important to me. So they do mention for long-term care facilities, the placement of emergency kits containing controlled substance is non-federally registered, and they shall be deemed to be in compliance with the Comprehensive Drug Abuse Prevention and Control Act of 1970. If the appropriate state agency or regulatory authority specifically approves such placement of the emergency kits at the long-term care facility and promulgates procedures which delineate. So, and a question from that, security safeguards for which emergency kits stored in long-term care facilities should include the designation of individuals who may have access to the emergency kits and a specific limitation of the type and quality of controlled substances permitted to be placed in each emergency kit. So another question, can a long-term care facility return a resident's unused controlled substance medications to a pharmacy? The answer is no. Those have already been pretty much given to the patient at that point, once they're given to the long-term care facility. So another question, can a patient in a LTCF, long-term care facility, receive methadone for maintenance purposes? So if the long-term care facility is registered with the DEA as a hospital or clinic, it need not be separately registered as a narcotic treatment program, NTP, to administer or dispense methadone as an adjunct to medical treatment of conditions other than addiction. If the long-term care facility that is not registered with the DEA has a patient who is also currently enrolled in a licensed narcotic treatment program, the narcotic treatment program, NTP, may transfer medication to the long-term care facility with the approval of the state methadone authority. If an individual is not currently enrolled in a narcotic treatment program and is in a long-term care facility that is not registered with the DEA, a practitioner may administer narcotic drugs to the individual for relieving acute withdrawal symptoms when necessary, while arrangements are being made for referral for treatment. No more than 1 day's medication may be administered to the individual or for the individual's use at one time. Such emergency treatment may be carried out for no more than 3 days and may not be renewed or extended. I feel like that's a really important thing to remember. That question could come up in several different ways. And it doesn't just extend to your long-term care facilities. You know, they can show you a prescription for methadone being used for addiction, and you have to know they can only have a 1 day's use. And if this is the 4th day of that 1 day, it violates those terms. So for records and reports, there's a question, the question says, what reports must be filled at a practitioner's experiences? What reports must be filled if a practitioner experiences a theft or significant loss of controlled substances? The answer, the practitioner shall notify the local DA office in writing of the theft and significant loss of the controlled substance within 1 business day of discovery of such loss or theft. The practitioner shall also complete and submit DA Form 106, which may be found at the www.diversion.usdoj.gov. So that's the same rule for pharmacies. You have 1 day to report that, and you should also notify your local DA office, and then if it was stolen, please. So Next up, we have another question here. What does a DEA registrant report? How does a DEA registrant report breakage or spillage of a controlled substance? So you should immediately think DEA Form 41. The answer they provide is breakage of controlled substances does not constitute a loss of controlled substance. When there is breakage, damage, spillage, or some other form of destruction, any recoverable controlled substances must be disposed of according to DEA requirements. Damaged goods may be disposed of through shipments to a reverse distributor or by DEA-approved process. The DEA recommends that any registrant seeking to dispose of controlled substances first contact the nearest DEA diversion field office for disposal instructions. In no case should drugs be forwarded to the DEA unless the registrant has received prior approval from the DEA. So if the breakage or spillage is not recoverable, the registrant must document the circumstances of the breakage in the inventory records. Two individuals who witnessed the breakage must sign the inventory records indicating what they witnessed. The submission of a DEA Form 41, registrant record of controlled substance destroyed, is not required for non-recoverable controlled substances. The DEA procedures established for the destruction of controlled substances shall not be considered as altering in any way the state laws or regulations for the disposal of controlled substances. When this disposal occurs, it must be reported to the DEA on a DEA Form 41. So some security questions. Are there any special security requirements a practitioner should follow if a stock of controlled substances is maintained in their office for dispensing and administration? So the answer, all controlled substances should be stored in a locked cabinet or other secure storage container with limited access by the office staff. Another question, is it appropriate to provide the DEA registration number when purchasing items other than controlled substances such as prescription drugs, over-the-counter drugs, or medical supplies from a distributor? And the relevant thing here is that the use of DEA registration numbers as an identification number is not an appropriate use and could lead to a weakening of the registration system. And they also point out that the Medicaid service has developed the National Provider Identification, NPI numbers, as a means to actually use in these situations. So next, still more DEA FAQs. We have the assurance of multiple prescriptions for Schedule II controlled substances. So what does this rule allow practitioners to do? A practitioner may provide individual patients with multiple prescriptions for the same Schedule II controlled substance to be filled sequentially, and combined effect of these multiple prescriptions is to allow the patient to receive over time up to a 90-day supply of that controlled substance. So what are the requirements for the assurance of multiple prescriptions for Schedule II controlled substances? Well, the individual practitioner must provide written instructions on each prescription indicating the earliest date in which the pharmacy may fill each prescription. So obviously there's more, and those things are in my other video. Definitely check them out or look this stuff up. But another pertinent question, is there a limit on the number of Schedule II dosage units a practitioner can prescribe to a patient? So there is no federal limit as to the amount of controlled substance a practitioner can legitimately prescribe. However, if a registered practitioner ensures multiple Schedule II prescriptions, he or she is limited to the combined effects of allowing a patient to receive over time up to a 90-day supply of a particular Schedule II controlled substance. So is there a limit on the number of separate prescriptions per Schedule II controlled substance that may be issued for a 90-day supply? So practitioners may issue 3 30-day Schedule II prescriptions to cover a 90-day supply, or he or she may issue 9 prescriptions for the same Schedule II controlled substance, each for a 10-day supply. So you can issue as many as you want as long as the combined effect is a 90-day supply. So another question, how is the assurance of multiple Schedule II prescriptions different from issuing a refill of Schedule II prescriptions? It ensures that the prescriptions are treated as separate dispensing documents. So, another question, Is post-dating of multiple prescriptions allowed? No. Federal regulations have always required that all prescriptions for controlled substances be dated as of and signed on the date it was issued. So that's why you have that don't fill by date and things along those lines.